What's up everyone, and welcome to another Rust Industrial video. I'm Austin, and today we're going to be covering how to make an easy blueprint swapper version 1. Now there's a few ways to do this. This is just a very simple way with minimal components. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. Over here I've got a power bank set up. If you're curious as to how and why I'm doing this, I will leave a link for that. Over here is the actual blueprint swapper setup. I've got 4 boxes, 3 of them are component boxes, and 1 is just a really simple sorting box, and we will talk about that here as we go. So we'll go ahead and just do a demonstration first. What it's going to do is it's going to pull this blueprint and the components needed for an AK out of these 2 boxes. It's going to craft it. Once it's done, it's going to transfer the AK and the blueprint back into these boxes and then sort the AK into this box here. So I'm going to use this button to get it started. You don't need a button, we'll cover that in a moment, but you'll see it's going to bring it in, the blueprint's going to arrive, there it is, the crafter will start, the blueprint's going to remain here while it crafts. Once it is done, it's going to, this one here is going to take that blueprint and that AK, it's going to bring it over and put them into this box, and then the AK will be sorted into this box. So really simple. It just has these, I mean really it's just 3 components, 4 components, I guess 5 if you count the industrial crafter, and is a total of 3 rust watts to run the meat of this. The button, like I said, is optional. You could just start it right here on this industrial crafter, but I put the button on there just to show you that there's an input on the side here that you can use if you are wanting to do so. So once this thing is done, it's almost finished, it's going to craft the AK. Then once it's done, it's going to pull those both out. There they go. It's transferring them over. They're going to show up in here, and then the AK is going to disappear into this one where I have it sorted. So obviously this is a very simple version. It is currently set up to do 1 item. This is expandable, so you could, if you've seen my last video on the auto kits, you could actually take some of that type of build and you could make this into up to 4. You could have 4 blueprints and 4 items craft and then auto come out, and I think I'll probably go ahead and do that as a version 2 or 3, whatever, here in the future. So let's go ahead and get started with the build. We'll start over here with the boxes. Like I said before, I've got 3 of the boxes. These top 2 and this bottom left one are actually the ones that have the components in them, and this last box is only connected to this box with an extra industrial adapter, and it's running to this industrial conveyor, and that's just running just AK. So it's set to any item and the AK, just so I can sort it. You don't have to do this. You could just stop here and they'd all dump into this box here, but that's up to you. So starting with the boxes, the output of this last box here is running to the input on this box here, and then its output is running to this box here, and then its out is running into the input on this first industrial conveyor here. The conveyor is set to, as far as the AK goes, we've got max 50 high qual, 200 wood, 1 rifle body, and 4 springs. And the reason I do that is because I want these to set, I want this to transfer exactly what I want for the recipe into the industrial crafter. Then of course I have I have a max 1 AK. If you only have 1 AK BP, you don't have to set the max. You can leave that at 0 if you only have 1 AK BP, which is what you probably have. And then down here I've got it set to require all, because I want it to transfer all of this exactly and only this exactly when it's ready. The output of that conveyor is running into a splitter here, and then its 2 outputs are running to the industrial crafter. Now importantly, industrial output 1 here is running to the blueprints in. It's important that you run the first output of the splitter to the blueprints, because these things run sequentially really quickly, but it goes 1, 2, 3. And so there have been instances where I was testing this where I had, say, the industrial out 3 running to the blueprints, and what happens is the blueprint ends up in the input box somewhere. And so you don't want that. You want the blueprint to arrive in the blueprints. It is possible for the conveyor to grab it and stick it into the input slots instead of the blueprint slot, because it grabs it first. And part of that is you have to make sure that you have, in order for 200 wood to show up, you need to have enough stacks where it can access enough stacks to give you that 200 wood. So assuming you have enough stacks for items that are over 60, it can affect it. So make sure, the best practice is just make sure you run the industrial out number 1 to the blueprints in on your industrial crafter. And then the industrial 2 out here, or 3, doesn't matter, is running to the industrial in, and these are for the components of the AK itself. And then the blueprints out here of this, so BP out is going to run, this doesn't matter, the order here doesn't matter. BP out is going to run over to this combiner here. I have it just arbitrarily going into industrial 3, doesn't matter. And then the output of the industrial crafter for the AK itself is running over to the industrial 1 on this combiner. Again, arbitrary, doesn't matter which one. The output of that is running to the input of this conveyor here. This conveyor is the one that's grabbing everything and putting it out. So if you expanded this and you did more items, you have to have whatever items this thing is crafting is what you'd have here. So I've got an AK and its BP because I want to swap the BP out. I have it set to require all. That is very, very important because if you don't have it set to require all, the moment that BP shows up in here, this will try and take it out unless you wire this up in a way that it's off and gets triggered to be on. But that adds a bunch of stuff to it, and it's much easier if this can just stay on. This one auto turns on and off, and we'll cover that in the wiring portion. But just leave this one on. It's just powered and stays on. And that way, if it's set to the require all, it's not going to take this BP out until the AK shows up in this output, and then it'll take the BP. And that's the ideal way to do this so that you don't accidentally remove the BP before it can start crafting, which can and will happen. And so then from the output of that conveyor there, that's just running over here to this input box, which is the input to these 3 boxes in this chain around here. This one right here, like I said, is optional, and it is just a little extra sorting thing I did just to show you that you could just not have this box entirely and terminate it here. This whole setup could run off a single box that just loops around, you know, into here from this output here. It doesn't have to be multiple boxes. And then of course the button, like I said, is optional. I just did it to show you that there's an input. So that's it. That's literally all you have to do as far as the build. You have, you know, this is a package. You would think of this swapper as, you know, this package here, these four items here are the actual circuit. I don't really count this because you have to have an industrial crafter in order to be blueprint swapping. So these 4 items, the 2 conveyors and the splitter and the combiner, are all you need. So we're going to move on next to the electrical portion of this. I have this extra piece coming in here. So if you're not going to do this, this was just kind of a little, AK any item just to pull the AKs out. But if you're not going to do this, you would just set this, right here, I've got a branch out going. It's 5 rust watts that I've taken out of this battery, and I've sent 5 to this branch. But the actual circuit, that way I have 1 for this, 3 for the blueprint swapper, and then 1 for this conveyor here. If you're going to skip this conveyor, this whole thing just requires 3 rust watts. So from this point, you can think of it as 3 rust watts arriving at this setup. I have that running to the power in of this first conveyor. The pass-through, electrical pass-through of that conveyor is now going to the power input of the conveyor above it. And then the output, its electrical pass-through here, is running over to the industrial crafter, and that's it. That's all. You have 1, 2, and 3. So just 3 rust watts arriving, and you're good to go. The top conveyor here, the filter pass here is running. You can't really see it, but it's just crossing over to the turn off. So filter pass to turn off. The filter fail we don't use. The turn on here, you can send a button or a timer set to 5 seconds or whatever you want. But that's how I'm turning it on. I could just as easily right now turn this on this way by just selecting the conveyor to turn on, and it's going to do its thing. And as soon as it starts conveying its things, it turns itself off because I have this filter pass running over to there, and now it is doing it again. It pulled in the blueprint. It's now making it. As soon as that AK appears, it's going to pull both these out and do what I showed you it does earlier. So as far as the electrical on this one, the turn on, turn off, we don't use. The filter pass and filter fail we don't use because we just leave this on, and that's pretty much it. Once this thing is set up, you can see that now it's done, and it's running that, it's pulling out that AK and the blueprints, and now the blueprint's back there, the AK's over there, and we're good to go. So you can kind of just, again, think of this as a little package, these 4 items, and with some optional stuff you could add to it if you want, but that's all you need. You can, again, expand this if you want, but that's going to be a future video. I think I'll make something that does more than, we can do 4 items or whatever. I mean, if you have a request, feel free to put it in the comments. But that, folks, is just about all I've got. If you have any questions or comments on this, you can leave them below. Otherwise, you can get me on my Discord. See you later.